Hi there everyone. In this short video I'm going to be talking to you about the factors affecting passenger transport in the UK. There are several factors. The first one is political, such as EU directives and government. Secondly, legal. An example of that would be the Disability Discrimination Act. Environmental factors such as carbon emissions and global warming. Social factors, which is about the needs and expectations of customers. And finally, economic factors such as fuel prices, which affects the cost of airline tickets, and the economic recession. So firstly, let's look at political factors. So what are political factors? Well, political factors are those that are controlled or dictated by governments. Now that can be at several levels. It can be at European level, national level, such as the UK government, and then regional or local level, such as Leeds City Council. Now at European level, the European Union passes laws and regulations known as directives. You may have heard of the Package Travel Directive or Package Travel Regulations. These regulations affect the way package holidays are sold in the UK. Another example would be passenger vehicle speed limiters, vehicle pollution levels, driver's hours and transport safety. At national level, the UK government provides subsidies or payments to some transport operators to allow them to offer services to the travelling public. This is particularly the case with trains and buses. Subsidies benefit local people and tourists alike, since without those subsidies it would not be cost effective for the transport companies to run the services. Subsidies are also offered by local councils and regional development agencies. Now let's take an example of the train companies. East Coast Trains, for example, are given subsidies by the government, which helps them run that particular which helps them run that particular rail network. Okay, let's talk about deregulation. Deregulation is when the government move ownership of transport services from the public to the private sector. That's called privatisation, and many UK airlines and other transport companies are now operated in the private sector. British Airways is one example and Virgin Trains is another, although you may well have heard in the news recently that Virgin Trains has lost the West Coast train route in a bidding process to the first group of companies which also operate buses in the UK. So why do we have deregulation? Well, it's intended to increase competition between companies. Okay, so let's look at some legal factors. Here's an example, DDA. What does this mean? Well, it's the Disability Discrimination Act. And I think this is a very good example when we're talking about passenger transport, because the DDA is something which really does affect transport, as you can imagine. The law states that public transport and their buildings, such as train stations, bus stations, airports and ferry ports, must be made accessible to disabled people. This also means that any services that are provided at these places must also be accessible to disabled people, for example, travel, information and booking facilities, which means things like websites must be very user-friendly for people who have very poor vision, for example. There are lots of examples about facilities that must be available at, for example, an airport. One good example might be the use of wheelchairs to get people from the check-in desk to the departure gate. Then there's environmental factors. Many scientists, as I'm sure you've heard, believe that carbon emissions from cars and aircraft contribute towards global warming. Global warming is the gradual rise in the Earth's temperature, which in turn may lead to the melting of the polar ice caps and the gradual rise in sea levels, threatening low-lying coastal areas. An example of this is the very low-lying but beautiful Maldives in the Indian Ocean. They're only a few feet above sea level, and should the sea level rise, those beautiful islands could be lost forever. Okay, continuing with environmental factors, here's a question for you. Can a Virgin Atlantic Boeing 747 or a Jumbo use fuel derived from a mixture of Brazilian nuts and coconuts? Well, the answer is yes. This is what's known as biofuel, and this is something which is being developed by airlines to try and reduce the dependency on fossil fuels like oil. And these airlines are experimenting with it, and it's hoped that the new fuel will be cheaper and, of course, not cause as much damage to the environment. Social factors. Transport over the last 150 years has really come on in leaps and bounds. And the population of the UK has become increasingly mobile. So people now have greater freedom to explore towns, cities and country areas on public transport and, of course, in their own private cars. An interesting fact, though, is that 30% of the UK population don't actually have cars. The falling real prices of travel and cars have opened up transport opportunities to people from all income levels, all religious backgrounds and ethnic origins. Then there's the enhanced holiday and leisure experience. Developments in transport have played a crucial role in the development of a travel and tourism sector. It also provides a wide range of products and services to destinations throughout the world and enhances people's quality of life. What this means is that people love going on holiday, they love having short breaks, and going on holiday is something that many people expect to have 2 or 3 holidays throughout the year. And finally, let's look at economic factors. Petrol prices have increased rapidly over the past few years. So this means that more people are actually using public transport. Transport is the lifeblood of the travel and tourism sector. It helps to create thousands of service jobs in the UK, and transport actually stimulates investment in airports, hotels, tourist attractions, travel agencies, tour operators, restaurants, nightclubs, etc. Okay, let's just summarise. We've discussed factors that affect and influence passenger transport. The UK transport industry also responded to these factors. For example, there has been more demand for investment in high-speed rail, and the government recently announced investment in high-speed trains between London, Birmingham and Leeds. But there are concerns over damage to the environment, which means transport providers need to develop new technologies such as cleaner fuel and quieter aircraft. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this short video. This video was made from a presentation that was made using Prezi. And if you've got any questions, please let me know. Thank you very much.